Hello, everyone, and welcome to the San Ildefonso Pueblo Nutrition Education Program. My name is Sarah Falion. I'm a dietitian and nutritionist, and I'm very grateful to be here. Wanted to give a few shout outs to people from the Pueblo, Governor McKenna, Troy Campbell, Dine and Cisco, Marie Campos, Martha Cook, Lenny Pena, Raylene Martinez, thank you, Raylene, and all the others who've helped to put these health programs together, because I think this is really important to get information and useful ideas for how to improve our nutrition. And also like to thank those members in our audience that are here today. Thank you for coming, and all those who are beaming in from elsewhere. This is an outline of our program. We're going to be looking at taste and flavor, and looking at this from view of traditional Chinese medicine, looking at some of the foods associated with taste, and looking at how we can retrain our taste buds. Because I think what is really important whenever you're making any kind of dietary change, nutrition change, it requires retraining your taste buds, because we all know what we like to eat. We all know what tastes good to us and what we're familiar with. And so it's really a process of retraining our taste buds. We'll look at 3 foods and some of the nutrient analysis with those 3 foods, and then we'll kind of wrap it up with questions and comments. So this is a picture of near where I live in Santa Fe, the mountains in the background, and it's along the rail trail, which is just lovely to see those mountain ranges. And the Tewa lands here are beautiful. I'm very, very happy to live here. So taste refers to a sensation of flavor, and it's detected by our taste buds or receptor cells. And these are throughout the mouth, in the tongue, and that when these receptor cells come in contact with the food, it sends a signal to the brain. And then we perceive this stimuli as a taste, a distinct taste. Flavor involves more the sense of smell. So it's what we call the olfactory. It also involves receptor cells that are in your nose, and that interacts with the odor particles of the food, and it sends a message to the brain. And so together with taste and flavor is how we experience our food. And we are going to be talking today about taste, and I think it's important to note that the American diet typically is very high in sodium and sugar. And so, for example, this is the amount of sugar that's in a 12-ounce can of soda. So it's a lot of sugar. And it's not to say that sugar is bad, it's just that there are other tastes that we want to balance to help appreciate our foods and to help keep our bodies in balance. And then I have some test tubes of sodium, because salt is another taste that we tend to eat a lot of. And that, like, this is 3 ounces of ramen noodles. And this surprised me. This is a hot dog, tablespoon of ketchup, 7 chips, and a half a cup of beans. So you can easily see that you think you're having a balanced meal, but you're getting all these sources of sodium in the diet. So hopefully what we can learn today is, and Dine, our chef, is going to help us with this, is how to balance out with other flavors and still, and maybe even more, appreciate our meals. So this picture, I love this picture. It shows some of the Pueblo foods, and you can see here, the corn is a sweet, and it looks like there's rosemary. That would be a distinctive flavor. The chilies, more pungent. So it looks like the traditional diet really has a lot of beautiful taste and balance. And hopefully, my hope is that through today, you'll learn how to maybe try some tastes maybe that you're not familiar with. So according to traditional Chinese medicine, there's 5 tastes. And when you look online or study, there may be other tastes that you hear about, but mostly what we'll talk about today will be the taste of sweet, sour, bitter, salty, and pungent. And pungent is one that sometimes people refer to as spicy or acrid. And according to traditional Chinese medicine, you eat all of these, but in the right balance to help, have health, good health. And what I've seen to be true is that when you do have these different tastes in balance, it will help to reduce food cravings. And so sometimes if I know for myself, if I eat a lot of sugar, then sometimes I'll start craving salt. And so this can help with food cravings. And scientists believe that the taste buds evolved probably for early human survival. So we'll go through each of the 5 tastes and we'll just talk a little bit about them. From this picture, you can see, there's a lot of wonderful fruits and vegetables that have sugar in them, but not to excess. And, the peppers, the tomatoes, corn, fruits, strawberries, grapes, all of these are great sources of sugar, but in a more natural form. And because rice has so much sugar and so much salt, our senses are a little bit desensitized. And sometimes it's hard to really experience the full blend of flavors. And so just encourage you, most people love sweet. That's usually not one that's hard to sample, but you can see here, tomato, winter squash, peppers, things like that. And then also in this category would be whole grains and things like honey. So sour is a taste that probably evolved to help protect early humans from rotten foods. But sour, when you look at it from the point of view of like Chinese medicine, they see that as it's a way it's the taste for spring, which is right now. And what it does is it helps to, by having more of this in the diet, it helps to cut down fat. It helps the gallbladder break down the fat. And so a remedy that I like that might be useful for you is to, in the morning before you eat, just have like a half a glass of water and squeeze some fresh lemon in it and drink that, and then just wait about a half hour before you eat. And it may help with digestion. It'll help kind of move things along. Other examples of sour would be lime, plum, cranberry. I have a picture here of rhubarb. And then a lot of cultured foods. Many cultures have sauerkraut, kimchi, which is Korean. And these foods help with, you may have heard of probiotics. These are probiotic foods. It helps, again, with digestion. And these are in a more natural form. Bitter is yet another taste. This one is less popular. A lot of people just don't like bitter at all. And yet it has so many health benefits. Again, it helps with digestion. It will help if you crave a lot of sweets and you eat some bitter food, kind of balance that out, less cravings for sweets. And, it may take a while to get used to these. We're going to talk about how to retrain the taste buds, but try to be open to at least maybe trying some of these foods. This picture shows the Dino kale, and looks like there's some beet greens, arugula, collard greens, and also probably the most popular bitter in the American diet is coffee. Black coffee. That is also bitter, and that will help with this as well. Green tea is another source, parsley. And so, as you're starting out, maybe you just have a little sprig of parsley you know, on your potatoes or something, just to kind of get familiar with that taste. Next is pungent. And this is a sharp sensation. You usually know it when you taste it. Things like ginger, chili. This picture shows the green chilies and the red chilies. Even things like garlic, ginger, radish, scallions, things like that. And these are a lot of favorite foods. And these really make our meals more enjoyable because you just have these wonderful flavors. So that's pungent. And then lastly is this taste of salt and salty taste. Salt is important, not the excess that, you know, we were talking about earlier, but just having maybe other sources, more healthier sources of salt in the diet. This picture shows seaweed. It's called kombu. I sometimes cook with this. You can throw maybe a little piece like this into a pot of rice or beans. It'll soften beans. And then you can keep it in there, or you can dispose of it if you don't want that in your meal. But it's a source of sodium. And it also has the trace minerals, which are really important. Our soil is depleted. And so we are missing a lot of these trace minerals. And that's one of the benefits of sea salt, especially if you find that has the little particles, that will provide those trace minerals that we need in small amounts. So other examples of this would be soy sauce, sea salt, and miso. I don't know if you're familiar with miso. Miso is an amazing food. It's a soy paste, and it's a fermented food also. So it's good for digestion. It's helpful to have that. And it's amazing that after Hiroshima, a lot of the people that survived that tragedy and the radiation survived because they think because of the miso, that helped eliminate that from their bodies. So that's salty. Let's look a little bit at retraining our taste buds. So I was looking online about this, and it's recommended to maybe try a little small portion. You know, it doesn't have to be half your, you know, a little piece of kale or collard green. And to get familiar with the taste, it's recommended to have repeated exposures, 5 to 10 times, to get familiar with it. And then over time, our palate becomes more accustomed to this new taste. And if we're not familiar with something, it does take a little time to get used to that. So as we'll see a little bit later, there's ways to introduce these tastes into our diet with sauces and condiments, rubs, little side dishes. And Dina is going to show you some great examples of that, how to introduce these into the diet so that your meals are enjoyable. So I have a suggestion for homework, if you're up for this, to add a different flavor to your diet. And just remember, it takes 5 to 10 times to get familiar with this new taste. So as we talked about, let's say you crave sweet. Treating more of that into your diet and see if that doesn't help. And you can just sort of observe how that's going and maybe write down some things. But I think you will see that it will make a difference. So now we're going to switch gears a little bit, and we're going to talk about 3 foods and a little bit about their nutrition. So the first item is peanut butter. And this is a popular food, and you can use it in a lot of different ways. And I just want to mention a few suggestions for selecting a healthier type of peanut butter. If you can find one that doesn't have hydrogenated fats or trans fats, these are, when you get your cholesterol taken every year, these hydrogenated fats will drive up your LDL and lower your HDL. So it has a bad effect on your lipids. And so if you can stay away from the hydrogenated fats, that's recommended. And also in peanut butter, you don't need added sugar or sweeteners, things like corn syrup, high fructose corn syrup. And high fructose corn syrup, read your labels, avoid that, because that's multiple more times sweet than just regular table sugar. And it has unknown really effects on us, but that it's desensitizing our tastes, I think, to other tastes. And it's not needed. It's causing weight gain. So from the added sugar, that's good, or other additives. I was looking with somebody yesterday online, and we found a brand that's at Smith's that's called, I think it's called Simply True, or it's their health food line that Smith's has. And it's not that expensive. It might be a little bit more than what you're used to paying, but it basically just has the peanuts and a little bit of salt. So the nutrient content of peanut butter is actually good. It's mostly a source of heart healthy fat, what you may have heard of called monounsaturated fatty acid. It's the heart healthy. And it's a good source of vitamin B6, of magnesium, and it's a source of protein. So it's a good snack too. I mean, it can be, for diabetics, it's good because it doesn't have carb in it, and it's got the fat and the protein. And this just breaks down the nutrient content a little bit more. You need that 2 tablespoons of peanut butter is the typical serving size. That's about 8 grams of protein. If you're trying to gain weight, you could have a little bit more. If you're trying to lose weight, maybe just have 1 tablespoon. But it'll have the vitamins and a little bit of fiber. So that's peanut butter. So next is chicken. And chicken, I think people like chicken, but they get kind of bored with chicken. It's like, oh my God, what are we going to do with chicken today? And so there's some exciting ideas with this today to see some ways to bring out the flavor. Chicken is a good source of niacin, vitamin B3, potassium, and zinc. And it's also an excellent source of protein. It's almost 30 grams for 4-ounce serving. And 4 ounces is about the size of a deck of cards. Lastly, tortillas. If you can get whole grain tortilla, whole wheat or whole corn flour, if you make your own, that's ideal. If not, and you buy the store-bought, then look at the ingredients. I really encourage you to start looking at ingredients, and maybe we can even have a class on how to do that, because there are so many things in food that if you don't really pay attention, they're slipping this in and that. You want to look for whole grain, like whole corn, whole wheat. If it doesn't say whole, it's not a whole grain. And again, avoiding these additives, chemicals, added sugar. If it ends in ose, O-S-E, that means it's a type of sugar, like glucose, fructose, maltose. All those are different forms of sugar that the food manufacturers are adding into these foods that really are wreaking havoc with diabetics and people who are trying to maintain their weight. So again, if you can get the homemade, that's best. But if not, look at your ingredients. A whole wheat tortilla or whole corn tortilla is mostly carbohydrate. So it's about 1.5 servings of carbohydrate for those of you who count your carbs, about 20 grams carbohydrate, has a little bit of protein, 4 grams, about 130 calories. It's a source of B vitamins. Any whole grain is going to be a good source of B vitamins. And that's really good, especially if you get stressed. You need those B vitamins to stay relaxed. Myself definitely included. Iron, potassium, and that manganese, and then also some fiber. And so these 3 foods actually, the tortilla is a carbohydrate, the chicken is a protein, and the what was it? The peanut butter is a fat. So we have a balanced diet there there's 3 main nutrients that you need for your diet. So just in summary, we've talked about the 5 tastes: sweet, sour, bitter, pungent, and salty, and how these tastes, if we include them in our diet on a regular basis, it will help enhance your enjoyment of your food. You'll have more flavors to appreciate. It can also help keep things in balance in the body, less likely to overeat, maybe feeling a little bit more satisfied with our foods, less cravings, food cravings. We looked at some of the foods and the corresponding taste, and then just a little bit about how to maybe retrain our taste buds, and looked at the nutrient analysis of 3 of the foods. So I thank you for your attention, and I look forward to hearing your questions or comments.
On the peanut butter, you know, you get peanut butter from commodities. Is that good? Or, you know, you buy some peanut butter, but you don't know what to get because there's so many.
Right.
And then if you purchase one, and it's all oily, you know.
Right. And
so you don't know which one to buy.
Right. And I'm hoping with the food boxes that Dine and myself can maybe make some suggestions on who's purchasing the food boxes, so that there will be some healthier choices, to at least try them and see if there is funding for that. I'm not sure about that, but more and more, I think the public is demanding healthier choices and healthier options. And so now even places like Smith's, they have healthier options. And you might pay a little bit more, but not really that much more. And you're so, does that answer your question?
And then another thing, when you make your own tortillas, I always add whole wheat flour to it.
Excellent.
On everything.
That's great.
Like dry bread, I add whole wheat also.
That's great, because that's going to build up the nutrition. Yeah.
Try to use not those heavy lard. Just go with canola oil.
Canola oil, excellent. That's a great choice. That's also a heart healthy fat. So great. Any other questions?
Comments? You've really grown. The miso, where would you find that in the grocery? Everybody.
What's that? The miso. You buy it. You can buy it in a container. Sometimes it's in glass. Sometimes it's in plastic. It's mostly, I've seen it at like natural grocers and Sprouts. Yeah, and you could ask them, and they could direct you for that. But you just like a tablespoon and put hot water in it. You can cut up some onion, and it's a nice. It's almost like a little broth, but it'll give you some protein. And welcome.
There's a vegetable. You know, you go to the store and see all the
burdock? Yeah.
What is that?
And burdock actually grows wild here in Mexico. It's usually along streams or near water. And it's actually, it is sour, and a lot of people use it in the springtime as a tonic. You boil the root and then you drink the tea, and it will kind of help cleanse. The burdock root, it'll kind of turn green, like if you let it sit overnight, and then the tea will turn green. You can get, I know they sell that at the food co-op. I'm not sure where else you could buy it, but I mean, it's all over. You'll see those burrs in the fall, like the green leaves, and then they'll have burrs. And it's burdock. You're shaking your head, yeah.
Yeah, they always get cut in the cow's tails and dog's hair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you just go after a cow to get that.
That's all.
Stop. Oh. Okay, so our new visitors, do you have any questions or comments?
What did you cover?
We talked about nutrition, we talked about taste, and you're going to learn a lot more about taste with Dine in her presentation. So I'll just point this out. This is worth saying again. This is the amount of sugar in 12 ounces of soda. So this is way too much sugar. We don't need this much sugar. So try to cut. That's one thing, if you're trying to, get healthy, cut your soda in half. If you normally have 1 or 2 a day, maybe just try to cut it in half and gradually, wean off it. Because the taste buds are accustomed. If you're accustomed to that sweet and you don't have it, you're like, whoa, where is it? So it takes a while to just gradually get accustomed.
So when you switch to diet, there's that one.
Artificial
Phentoin or fetal, yeah. So this is very controversial. I mean, in the nutrition field, the whole idea of artificial sweeteners, and some scientists say there's no evidence that it causes harm. My belief is if you can eat a diet and have beverages in their most natural form, it's easier on the body. When your body is continually detecting and having to break down the kidneys and liver, having to break these things down, and sometimes they're not really even sure what these things. And if at least with sugar, if you have a tablespoon of sugar, your body is going to recognize that. Your brain's going to recognize sweet, and then you'll feel satisfied, unless there's other health concerns there. But when you have some of these other sweeteners, the body doesn't recognize it. And so then sometimes the tendency is to overeat or not feel satisfied, and then like, oh, well, I want a regular soda. But if it works for you and you find that it helps you with managing your weight, then I would say that that's an individual choice.
They always say that it's better to chew the sugar than the artificial sweet, because like what Sarah was saying, you buy the process of sugar but not the artificial sweet.
Well, and what's weird now is like what I noticed is like to get off the sugar. So diet Dr. Pepper, I went to tasting like Dr. Pepper, but then now they have Dr. Pepper no sugar label. So then I bought one and they're both. So it's like, diet or even no sugar. I guess this is up to the person looking at it, what you're gonna buy, because people are like, oh, it's diet. You see the word diet, so they don't want to get it. But now Dr. Pepper sugar is the same label.
And that brings up a point too, that we really need to be communicating more clearly to the public what's in the food. We have a right to know that, and not these gimmicks, but part of the problem is that the food is bought and sold. It's a commodity, and oftentimes the health aspects are just completely put aside. So the best thing though is to know what's in the food, is to read under the nutrition facts the ingredients, because that will tell you what's in there. And
carbohydrates and sugar. So if I'm gonna drink something, I'll just look at the label. And carbohydrates, it has like 13 grams of the sugar, it still has some grams. So combined, there's still quite a bit of sugar.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point, that some things naturally have carbohydrate in them. Like an apple it'll have a certain amount of fructose in there. But then if you buy apple fritters, then you've got you've got the natural part, and then you've got added sugar. And so really, if you can back on the added, part and eat the food more in its natural form, that's one way that you can help you manage your blood sugars and weight. But that's great that you read the labels, because that will tell you how many grams you're looking at. So 13 grams is about 1 serving carbohydrate. And it takes a while. If you're new to this, don't feel discouraged. It takes a while to learn this, to feel comfortable, to know what the numbers mean. I mean, you look at this and it's like Greek, but in time you can learn this. And I'm happy to work with anybody individually. Raylene is setting up appointments, so you can contact.
Does that mean you can actually develop like a prep plan based on the goals? Could you develop that? So
like meal plan?
Yeah.
Sure.
Kind of like just kind of like for say somebody that's working out versus somebody that's losing weight, because really it's a calculation, right? It's taking so many calories in.
Sure, your nutrition needs are going to be different than mine.
Right.
Different age, different gender, different physical activity. I mean, you have to factor all that in. It's very true. And so it is individualized. I mean, we're talking general today, but if you have individual concerns or you have family members that you think might benefit, I think it's worth looking at, getting some one-on-one.
So would you be able to kind of assist with developing something like that?
Sure. Absolutely. What would help is if you do journal for 3 days what you eat. That gives me an idea of what kind of foods you like, what kind of foods you're eating, maybe what foods you're not eating. And then we can work from there and build. And I try to work with people where they are. I mean, I'm not going to suggest things I've suggested some things here today that you may or may not try, and that's fine. But trying to work with where somebody is and then help them to make the changes that they think will benefit them.